Welcome everyone to this is our first event on our new interface, which I'm happy that everyone has reported that it's been much simpler to get to get into the event. So I hope you enjoy it. And as a special thank you today, of course, at the end I'll be giving away, in addition to both books that Mary Jane just released, 5 copies of American Sock Knitting. So as a little thank you. So stick around after I finish the recording, and we'll be giving away goodies. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Mary Jane, for coming back after we had a total crash and burn when we tried your event on Tuesday. So welcome back, Mary Jane.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, and I have to say, now are you in your workspace now? Is that where we're talking to you?
Yeah, it's part my workspace sort of spreads all over the house, much to the other inhabitants' chagrin. But this is where I have all my books, and if you could see the floor around me, it's full of baskets and yarn and things like that.
Well, I think that probably makes the rest of us feel a whole lot better. Um, we had Debbie Bliss here a couple of weeks ago, and the author picture in the book in her new book is stunning. The office she's in is stunning. It's all white and organized and beautiful, and she said it was actually a stage for the photo shoot, which really made me feel better because
Yeah, I
you
know. I
know
was really jealous there for a minute.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was
the
having one
fancy
of those,
studio.
Martha Stewart moments where it just makes you feel really so inferior. So she said, no, if you could see her real workspace, that you wouldn't feel that way. So it's nice to know that you have, because I see you've got your big library behind you and stacks of fabric or stacks of knitting, and it just honestly warms my heart
Yeah,
because on many days you can't even get into my studio. So you have to dig a path. So that it does make me feel a lot better.
yeah.
So Mary Jane, it's your first visit here. So tell us, how did you get started down this road?
Down the path of knitting, you mean?
Yeah, how did you get
Um,
started knitting?
Well, it started really early when I was about 4. My next door neighbor taught me, and she was a teenager, and I worshipped her. But she taught me one day, and I was good, and I finished everything she gave me, and couldn't wait for her to get home from school to take it off the needles. But when she came home, she was praising me, and oh, look how good you've done. And then she took it off and just pulled it all out.
Oh,
I know. It was like ramen. It was like pale green ramen. And she never
how
showed me
funny.
again. Yeah, so I never really learned again until really I had a friend go to Sweden for one of the folk high school programs, and she came back learning all kinds of stuff, but knitting. She'd knit this reindeer sweater for her mother, and actually a hat for me with my name on the inside, and that's when I decided I had to do it again. So I picked up needles and decided they always want you to make a scarf, right? So
Yeah,
I made,
that's where most people start.
yeah, right. And you buy 2 balls of yarn. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think so. And I also thought, oh, well, this is going to be a really good scarf because it's going to be bigger and better. And so I cast on like way too many stitches, knit this whole thing, and apparently was twisting a stitch. Didn't know. Found out years later what I was doing. So I had this thing that was like the wrong size for a scarf and too small for a baby blanket, and I didn't know babies anyway, so that was discouraging. And then finally, I guess I went to Santa Barbara of all places, and I worked right next to a yarn shop, and I used to go in and stare at the yarn because it was so beautiful. Um, and the woman who ran the store said, for all the time you sit around in that boutique, you could have knit yourself a sweater. So one day it was slow. I went in, I said, fix me up. And she said, okay, pick a color. I picked this great blue. And she had me knitting like this really hard sweater, like stitch patterns all over the place. Just one color, but still. And I read the whole thing wrong, backwards. But since, you could flip it because it was done in pieces. So, yeah. And then I never stopped. I made like pointed hats forever. I went back to New York City and just made hats and hats and hats and hats. And then I guess I moved to Maine, and none of my skills. I'd gone to art school in New York City and worked in the garment industry, and I came to Maine, and my skills didn't really transfer very well. So, but you needed warmth, and
Yeah, I
so
mean it's
I
a great
started.
place. It's a great place if you're a knitter.
Yeah, so I just kind of started and never stopped, and I didn't have enough money for a whole sweater's worth of yarn, so I started to do Fair Isle knitting. You just needed a little bit.
Oh, and the rest is history.
There you go.
Yeah, so now, this is the first time we've ever, and I think I've been doing live events for, I think we've been doing maybe 4 years now. It's the first time I've ever had an author who had two books come out pretty much at the same time, which
Yeah,
is,
so
which is,
other people weren't as crazy.
yeah, I think there might be something to that as somebody who's done a couple books, the idea of doing two at the same time really just makes me scratch my head. And because in addition to the books, you were telling me like you do styling work for Barocco as well, right?
Yep. I'm just I've got a workshop this weekend with Amy Herzog and Clara Parks, and directly after that, like that night, I drive to the Barocco photo shoot for the next 4 or 5 days. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a big
I
that's a
mean,
big job. We do all those books, all the Barocco books that come out each season in 4 or 5 days. So like 80 garments.
which is just
We're
crazy.
I think we're magicians.
Yeah, and then in your spare time you have books and you teach, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I get to go all over the place teaching though, so that's pretty lucky.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. I have some things to show people so that they can track you down.
Right
So,
on.
yeah, which is a good thing. Tracking you down is a good thing. So, but let's talk about these two books first, the 150 Scandinavian Motifs and the Fair Isle Style. So, I will say your first the first book that you did that had Fair Isle motifs is one of the few books that I duplicated for my cabin because it's my go-to when I do color work, which I absolutely love. I'm a huge fan of color work. So when the publicist for your publisher emailed me and said, "Oh, would you like to have an event with Mary Jane Mucklestone?" I was like, "Are you kidding me? She's my color work hero. I'm so excited." So
Ah, yay.
I really slobbered all over myself. I have to admit. So,
Well, that's so nice.
so I was really excited one that you were coming, and two that you have these two great books. So let's take a peek, and hopefully, since I'm now on full screen, I really can't see you, Mary Jane, but I
Okay, I'm still here.
okay, I'm gonna have faith that this is gonna work. I'm hoping that you can see the cover of 150 Scandinavian motifs.
Yes.
Oh, yay. Okay, so that it's working so far. So, can you tell us a little bit about the difference between the Scandinavian and what we consider like kind of the classic Fair Isle?
Well, Fair Isle has certain rules, and I think and different motifs to a certain degree. With Fair Isle knitting, there's never more than 2 colors in any round, and there's usually not more than about 7 to 9 stitches between color changes. So the colors change really frequently, so there's no long floats on the back. And also in Fair Isle knitting, the motifs tend to be really symmetrical. So they can be divided up and down. They can be, vertically, horizontally, and diagonally on 2 diagonals. The classic border pattern in Fair Isle knitting is called an OXO pattern, which is an O, an X, and an O. You find those same patterns in Scandinavian knitting. However, a lot of Scandinavian knitting will have, and it's a big generalization. Scandinavia is this huge area, but we try to pick, or I try to pick enough of a range from all the representative countries. But they'll be asymmetrical, like for instance on the cover here, these birds are not symmetrical at all. And let's see what else. You have cute things like little people and little pigs and lots of animals. Those, I think some people were disappointed not to find those in a Fair Isle book. Those aren't really classic Fair Isle motifs. So it's great to be able to do this one and include things like that.
Yeah, because everybody needs a reindeer jumper. I mean, right? I mean, you
They
need a
do,
reindeer sweater.
yeah,
You have to have a reindeer sweater. If you're going to wear
right.
sweaters, you need to have a reindeer sweater.
Yeah, it's important. So there's some
Yes.
reindeer in the book.
Yeah,
I think
and
there's
no, and
three
nobody,
different ones.
nobody ever gave me a reindeer sweater, and I think I still bear some. Still have some issues with that, so I guess I'm going to have to give up and knit myself a reindeer sweater. So I took some samples because this book has both. It's a dictionary, but it's also or stitch dictionary, but it's also a it also has projects in it. And what I really liked about the swatches is it shows you how you can mix patterns because I think people are nervous enough about mixing color, but mixing pattern because this is what we were always told not to do when we were taught how to dress, right? So it was
Right.
like you don't wear checks and stripes, you don't wear two patterns together. Most people won't even do it in their home decor, much less in their clothing. And so I love that the swatches all have more than one pattern in them because it really shows you how, especially when you have that continuity of color, how, don't be scared of mixing patterns, which I think a lot of it makes people nervous. So because it's what we were taught not to do.
Right. Yep. I understand. Yeah, and that was partly a vehicle of how to get 150 motifs into a single book because you only have so many pages, and I didn't feel like I could do it arranged like the Fair Isle book from small motifs going up to larger motifs. And I also had to knit. Each swatch was knit for the page. So, and I didn't have time to do like a gauge swatch. So there was a little bit of gambling involved to see what I could knit that would fit on the page. It was really fun to put them together, though, I'll say. So
Yeah,
I
and I
encourage
love this
everyone.
because it's squares and circles, which I mean, you just couldn't go really farther different in shape, and
Right.
but it looks it's the geometry of it just makes it look modern. I mean, it's a classic design, but it really looks modern, especially in this kind of black or charcoal and white color palette. Charcoal and
Yep.
silver gray is really it's just beautiful.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, and let me
I love these little all over patterns. They're really fun to do. They're simple to memorize, and they can really fit any.
yeah, and this one shows this is red and navy or red and charcoal. I mean, even
It's navy. It was a little hard to choose colors for this book because in traditional Scandinavian work, it's really high contrast. Like it would be black and white, which of course don't show up for publication very well. And you take a picture of a black swatch, it's just going to look solid. You won't be able to see the stitches. So this is actually sort of a cranberry red and a navy blue.
yeah, and what I really like is how it shows just even the simple like open work, like the four stitch kind of flower design,
Mhm.
how much that adds to the fabric itself without being a really a lot of work. And the nice thing about this kind of pattern too is because of how it repeats, you don't really have to once you get established, you don't have to stare at the chart all the time,
No, it's they both of these patterns memorize really quickly.
which is
And you could make the upper one, those little flowers farther apart. They could be more sprinkled. They don't have to be as close as you see them here. It's just endless the possibilities.
yeah, and it's just that little bit of color change makes such a dramatic difference. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about Fair Isle, and it's one of the things I love about Entrelac is that when you once you learn how to do it, it's actually not difficult. But when you give it to somebody as a gift who doesn't knit, they think you are a genius.
Well, come on, give yourself some credit. You are a little bit of a genius.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
you
a little
really
bit
are.
of a
It's a
genius.
mystery. It's a wonderful, mysterious mystery. Yeah, so
Yeah,
here's those same patterns, only done a different way. And then actually on the yellow, it's solid in the middle, and the blue at the bottom. So
yeah,
just a
and
tiny little difference will make a complete difference.
Yeah, and I really love how it's kind of it's the same pattern. You learn it once, and then you
Mhm.
just do it in different colors, and how really what a gorgeous fabric that makes.
And it's fun.
Yeah, that too. That too. I have to admit, I pulled this swatch because I think it shows like the modern look and the bright colors that, because I think so many people when they think of the Fair Isle or Scandinavian knitting, they think, the sweaters from the 50s and the 60s. They don't think in terms of how bright and modern and beautiful. And I especially love the bottom pattern on this because it looks like ribbing, but done in colors.
Yeah, it's a really, really old-fashioned pattern too. And like you say, with different colors, it looks fresh and modern. But it's one of the oldest patterns you'll find, and it's represented in weaving drafts. Even they're called pole patterns. And traditionally, they're just done straight up and down. But I added the lattice on the top, and that little heart, that little flower motif you find. I think I've got another page including variations on just the single flower motif.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's fun. It's a little more difficult, the one on top, because there are several rows with, well, actually, yeah, 2 rows in the motif with 3 colors in the round. So that takes a little bit more practice, but once you do it, it's fun. I used to just groan and say, oh, I will never, ever, because I was a Fair Isle purist, never have more than 2 colors in a round. But, I changed. I'll do 3.
yeah,
I'll
and
even do
and
4.
I've always, if I'm going to do a third color in Fair Isle, I always embroider it on. And I know when I first talked to you about this book and I asked you if those were embroidered on, is I haven't done 3 colors in a row, but you have inspired me to abandon my tapestry needle and my extra ends to weave in. And
Yeah, it's funny what you can teach yourself to do. So once you get 2 in a round, like I hold actually when I knit any Fair Isle, I hold, and just 2 colors, I hold them both in my left hand. So it was just a matter of training my right hand to work also. So, and then, but it's a little harder for me to do 4 colors because I'm not as good with my right hand. But I think if I ever have the time, I'd practice and sit down and just do Fair Isle with 2 colors with a hand I'm not used to doing it with, which is my right hand. And if I did that for a month, I'd have it for sure.
okay,
Maybe even
I
only a
really
week.
think we need to find you another hobby. Because that's just compulsive. That just it borders on compulsive.
Okay, well, I'll embroider. I do all that stuff. I'm a printmaker too.
Oh, there you go. And most of the people I know who knit do other things as well. I mean, it's they quilt or they paint or they sculpt or they needlepoint or I mean, they do something else. I'm not really sure what that is, but I know very few knitters who don't do other crafts as well, who aren't into some other kind of artistic pursuit. I guess
Yeah,
we're just all artistic people. I had to include this one because the crown is actually they are all over my studio because of the Pearl Queen moniker. So I am a huge fan of anything with crowns on it. So because I guess I am, well, I'm not a princess, I am a queen.
yeah,
But this was kind of an example of the figurative work, where it's not just like a geometric design, but it's actually creating like a figurative thing.
yeah.
Is this more common in the Scandinavian than the traditional Fair Isle?
Yes, definitely. Yes. Um, yeah, even the really old sweaters will have these crowns on them. So it's a really popular motif. Like maybe they just put one crown on the center in with a whole bunch of the little all over patterns surrounding it. But yeah, they're featured.
Well, I'm all for it.
And there's I have there are 2 motifs there. You see, there's 2 different crowns, but they're in the world of Scandinavian knitting. There's like endless. There's hundreds of different crowns. So this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, do they bead these ever?
You
Uh,
could definitely bead them, don't you think? Yeah, you could have a
yeah,
jewel crown easily.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What's the sense of having a crown if it doesn't have jewels?
Exactly.
But this is really lovely in a beautiful mix of color. The little pops of red. It really shows you what just adding in that little extra bit of color, which under normal circumstances, since I never did three colors in a row, I would have had to go back and embroider and run tons of ends. So, but yes, it's really cute. I just love this.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so hard to embroider because it's just in that one round. So, I
Yeah,
you, that's legitimate.
only a few extra ends. Oh,
You'd run it all the way across. You
yeah.
wouldn't have to have any ends at all.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. And then I could just sew them into my seams. So this is so bright and fun and spring-like, and I so see this in like a soft cotton wool blend for a summer sweater. And I just love that this is such a contrast from what we typically think about with the dark colors, the black and the white, the black and white, or brown and white, or dark red and white, or navy blue and white that we typically see in like kind of Scandinavian, what we think of as traditional Scandinavian knitting. This is just gorgeous.
Thank you. And again, there are old motifs, but done with modern color. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so I loved it. And then of course there's projects in this book, and I absolutely love this project. It's such a great way to start if you're not familiar with stranded knitting. It's a beautiful, small, and incredibly useful uh, gift project as well. So once you get the hang of them, and the lovely thing about this is the backside. It's actually knit double what you see here, right? And the backside is the reverse colorway, so it's blue on gray on this side, and then gray on blue on the other side. So, which normally, I would do double knitted and hope that I don't cross my strands, but it's easier to do it this way. So so this is a great first project. Is this what you would recommend for someone who's not familiar with Fair Isle, that they start something small like this rather than a big sweater?
Yeah, I would definitely say a small project. However, this one is small diameter also because it's a darling little pin cushion. So it's really small. It fits in your hand. So it requires double pointed needles or true circular or magic loop if that's your method. And so long as you're comfortable knitting that way, yeah, I'd say go for it. But a maybe better choice first would be something like the cowl where
Oh, I
you have
think
a bigger
we
piece to work on. If you're really,
where is it? Right there.
yeah, this one, just because it's a bigger piece, so you don't have a tiny piece like the pin cushion. Those double ends, double pointing needles can thwart people, and this will. The cowl is large enough. It's done on I think a 16-inch circular needle, so you can really practice on getting your tension right.
Oh, well, there's a good idea. And this is really pretty and um done in a really modern palette. But for people who live in the city, I guess everybody wears a black coat. Everybody owns black coats, and I really love bright cowls and scarves
Yeah.
because especially if you're wearing a coat, the odds are it's gray, it's snowing, it's raining, it's otherwise miserable outside. So, but I could see this in a lightweight yarn even in the spring and the fall if you live in northern places, or in the dead of winter if you live in Florida, like some of us do most of the year. So now you have a couple mittens patterns in here as well. And I think I'm used to seeing this type of knitting on mittens, which is the same thing is like you wear a solid black coat, your color is on your hands and it's around your neck and on the top of your head, which what's nice is there are projects in this book for your hands, your neck, and your head. So
Yay.
yay. So for people who haven't knit mittens before, would you suggest they start with a solid mitten before attempting it in a Scandinavian knitting, or just jump right in?
Oh, well, I just counseled you to knit the cowl, but yeah, I'm the kind of knitter that I just jump right in. I would say go if you really, really want to knit something, knit it. You'll make it work. If you get discouraged put it down, take a walk, pick it up again, shake your hands out, take it up again and try. These mittens have 3 colors in those every round that you see the black, except not on the thumb. So I gave you a little break there.
Well, you
But you
appreciate
could
that.
just do it in 2 colors also. And it's got a peasant thumb, so it's really easy to pick up. It's, just nothing. It's like a buttonhole, really. So
Oh,
anybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't done mittens.
And
Maybe I'll
I
try that.
know I used to be a real gussets only on mitten person because it's so beautiful and elegant. But I live, like I say, in Maine, and I haul a lot of wood, and they just get their own gussets just from wearing them. So these peasant mittens I used to snub are actually great.
Well, maybe I'll try this then as my first set of mittens. And this is what of course, for me, this needs to be on a sweater. It's the reindeer hat. There's something about that reindeer motif that is just so quintessentially Scandinavian that it should be on everything.
Yeah, don't you? I love these ones because they look so proud. It's proud.
They
These
do. They're
reindeer.
like happy to be reindeer, and they appear to be happy to be on this hat.
They are. They're marching around the hat very happily.
Yeah, adorable. And I like the two color pom pom. The nice little touch on
Oh
them.
yeah, I'm a real fan of multicolored pom poms.
Yeah,
And this only takes 2 balls of yarn because the color switches in the middle, so you use every scrap, but because you use everything left in a pom pom.
oh, well, that's a nice cost-effective gift knit as well.
There you go.
It
Yep.
well, I don't know. Can you have too many hats? You live in Maine, so you would know. Is it
You
possible to have
can't
too
have
many?
too many hats, and you often
Okay.
find your hats on your children's friends. So like years later, oh, that's where that
Oh,
hat
that's
went.
where that hat went. So, and because you just had nothing to do in your spare time,
Right.
yeah, I have all the books in this style series from Interweave, and this was when they did the color style book a couple years ago. I I was hoping for more Fair Isle in the book and, or stranded knitting, but there were there were stripes and I think there was some double knitting and there was a fair amount of intarsia. So I was really happy to see they decided to do a book that is that was all stranded knitting, all Fair Isle. So and actually, when I first looked at the yoke of the sweater, I had to sit down and figure out where things went because it's so colorful and it's so yeah, and the nice thing is that the color is basically in one place up near your face where it helps show off your face and your hair and your whatever you have in your ears. But I was really tickled that they decided to do a book that was all Fair Isle. How did you get involved in this book?
Well, I had pitched this book a long time ago. I was the stylist for Interweave when Cam Allen was the editor, and um, I kept saying, we need a Fair Isle style book. But at the time, it just, people just, they thought of what you said, old-fashioned 60s things that were stiff and like boards. So they didn't think anybody really wanted to knit those because that's all that it seemed to be. And there were, I mean, I think they were right to wait because now, it's been an explosion all over the runways, really popular everywhere. You see it everywhere. And when I proposed it first, it was still a sort of obscure or granny thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was happy to do it. And I'm really, there's a lot of new designers in the book, too, who just lend such a vibrant vibe to the whole thing.
Yeah, there's some very interesting uses of Fair Isle in this book, which now you'll get to preview. And I did a little post on our Facebook page with 4 of the patterns from the book and asked people which were their favorites. And everyone wants to knit these socks.
They
These are
do. Oh, I'm
so
so
pretty.
happy.
Everyone wants to knit
Yay.
these socks. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love these socks too. I really do because they're that sort of retro crazy colors, but with the sheep gray, they get toned down. So it's, I don't know, a little of you get both, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and
And they're fun to knit.
this happens to be one of your designs, but what's nice is the cuff is really where the concentration of the color work is. So for most of the foot, you have a pretty easy go of it.
You do. You just get that one little intense band of a ferrule with a star motif, and then you're just doing socks after that. So yeah, it's a good. So you can have a fan. You can bring it along once you get past that point. So it's easy to go. You don't have to pay attention after you've done the ferrule part.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's the mindless reward for having done a little bit of work, but I think anybody who got these as a gift, especially, would think that you were a mad crazy genius because they're
Oh,
beautiful.
definitely.
Yeah, they're just beautiful socks. And of course, there's the cover sweater, and where you can see the corrugated ribbing on the cuff. And what I think is so beautiful is that gradient color going
Yeah.
going up the ribbing is just really stunning. Just the color mix in this sweater is
Yes.
is really
Cheryl Burke's
gorgeous.
the designer, and she's got an amazing eye for color. And I especially like you say, how the cuffs and the yoke don't mimic each other exactly. I mean, they mimic each other, but they're different. So
Yeah.
that lends a lot more interest to the
Yeah,
whole
and just
sweater.
how that color blends up into that beautiful vibrant purple is just really stunning.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
this is Jameson's from, which is yarn from Shetland, the company in Sandnes.
yeah, so pretty. Yeah, they make beautiful yarns too. So, and this also got much love on our Facebook page. People just love fingerless mitts, and I have to say they're really probably one of the most functional small knits that you can make with and easy without when you don't have to do the fingers like on gloves. But so tell us a little bit about this project.
Well, these are by Billie Jane, who's a genius, and she's famous for her mittens and her socks. She's famous for these small, darling, irresistible, all-over patterns. And in this case, it's these mushrooms that are out in the woods today. If you go out back of my house, you'll find these little red-capped mushrooms. It's made with this luscious, luscious yarn from Carol Sunday called Sunday Knits Yarns, and each they're all the same diameter yarns, but they'll have slightly different fiber content. One has a tiny bit of angora, so it's like a gift to get the yarn in the mail, and then to work with it is a dream. And these little mitts are just so comfortable. And like you say, they're useful. My hands always get cold at the computer, so
Yeah,
I always
yeah,
use
and even
these.
people who live in the South during the summer, oddly enough, is when you would at work is where you would need fingerless mitts because we turn the AC, all the way up or all the way down, depending on how you look at it. But it's so cold in the building, even in the summertime, that a little something to help keep your hands warm, but to keep your fingers free is really nice. So, but and
Yeah,
I love the color combination on these, and you can tell that this yarn is really scrumptious just looking at it. It makes you want to touch it.
yeah, they're really like little luxuries. They're wonderful.
Oh,
So
what?
perfect for fall, mushroom
Yeah,
hunting season.
beautiful. And I love the brown and red together. It's just so pretty. So this I was really taken. I had to really stare at it to figure it out because when I first looked at it, I thought it was an embroidered and smocked dress.
Oh, right, yeah, because it's the same stitch pattern that you do for smocking on little girls' dresses. Yes.
Yeah, and it shows how just a little bit of Fair Isle. I mean, it turns this into something really special.
Yeah. Gudrun Johnston born on Shetland, and so and her mother was a knitwear designer as well, and so she was surrounded by this her whole childhood, and really complicated ones, yet she was able to distill it, to this really simple but elegant dress. Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks simple, but it's not easy to do. I mean, it takes someone like her to really come up with the way to really do it. So,
yeah, and it's
yeah.
such a muted and modern color palette that
It's Brooklyn Tweed yarn. the thinner one.
Yeah,
Which one is that?
just gorgeous. Yeah, I thought it was a smocked yoke because it just has that design to it. This little bird was on our Facebook page too, and just well, I told you in the book, I think this is my favorite little project. There's just something about this bird.
Well, it's irresistible. And we had it at my house for a while, and my daughter and I would just carry it around, like carry it from room to room. It's really comfortable to hold in your hand. It's such a sweet bird, and it's your best friend. Yeah,
Yeah, and
really adorable. Lucinda Guy's the designer of this.
yeah, and it looks like it's Scandinavian. It just has a Scandinavian look to it, the color palette, and I don't know. It's just this got massive love on our Facebook
Other
page.
callers on the call on
So,
our Facebook page.
whoever just logged in, could you just go ahead and mute your mic for me?
Just go ahead and mute your mic for me.
So I don't have to go back to it. Okay, so yeah, this is just so cute, and eventually I'll have grandchildren, and this will be the first baby gift I knit. So it's just so cute. Now
So what
this,
makes this different? Oh, I would just
go
wanted
ahead.
to say that it's a typical Scandinavian motif. You find these motifs in Fair Isle and Scandinavian knitting, and in fact, the stars, or we call this a rose. A lot of that happened during World War II when there were a lot of Norwegian refugees that came to Shetland, so you saw a lot more stars. The purists would say the stars were only Shetland, that real Fair Islanders from Fair Isle didn't knit these stars. But what makes it really Fair Isle is the use of color, that she's changed the color throughout that rose motif, and again in the little lights, the little dots. So that's one of the differences between Scandinavian and Fair Isle knitting, is arrangement of color.
Yeah, this is just so precious. It's so precious. Now this is yours, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and what I really love is when I see Fair Isle done in really modern color palettes with the brown and the gray and the cream. And now this is knit in the round and steeked, right?
Yes, it is. But it's a pretty easy first steeking project. I deliberately made it simple. So there's just a straight steek up the front. There's no shaping. There's just a slight drop shoulder. So it really is a ideal first project. I mean, it's a big project, but it's perfect. It's not a difficult steeking sweater.
Well, and we'll talk in a minute about how people can actually take a class that includes steeking from Mary Jane herself on Craftsy. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So, and then this is a great knitted in the round. You can never have too many kind of projects. So tell us
Yeah,
about this bag.
this is Mags Candace, and she always does really interesting graphic work. She was inspired by the mud cloths of Mali. So there you go. It's knit Fair Isle, but it's African. And also, if you open it up, there's bright pink silk lining, which is always fun to be able to have a surprise inside.
Yes.
Yeah, I just like her multicultural approach. I
Yeah,
think
it's
it's a
very
great project.
tribal.
Yeah,
It definitely
yeah.
has that
Yet
tribal
real,
thing to it.
classic Fair Isle designs. So
Yeah, it just shows you it goes everywhere, doesn't it? And then because you can't have enough hats because they show up on your friends, your children's friends,
yeah,
when
right.
you're
It's
not paying
true.
attention. This is really pretty. The color palette on this is really nice.
Yeah, this is Lisa Schroyer, who's the editor of Interweave Knits, and she has an amazing sense of color, and it's just beautiful. This I was bowled over when she made the proposal. So
Yeah,
yeah,
this
I'm
is
really really happy with it. And it's slouchy, but you could also block it to have a strict tan if you wanted to.
yeah. I like the slouchy. I think that's kind of that's how most of the young people are wearing their hats these days.
Yes.
So, and this project just made me grin ear to ear.
Yeah, they're aren't they? They're like irresistible.
Yeah, the little trees with the little secret squirrel.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
so cute.
And interesting cuff treatments. There's another pair of mittens in the book that are the same shape, but with a flower motif on it. So really look at those and look at how she, on both of them, have very different but very interesting cuff treatments.
Yeah, there's just that little bit of whimsy on these projects, which with this little squirrel, it just, how could you not smile every time you looked at the inside of your hand?
I know it. Or you could just keep it a secret. No one would know but you, depending upon how
Exactly.
you held your hand.
Yeah, if you put your hand out
And
to
on those gloomy days, you have your squirrel friend with you.
exactly. It's like your little secret squirrel friend. So
Mm-hmm.
cute. So cute. So let's talk about now where people can find you. So
Well,
we
I'm
can
at Mary
find you
Jane.
almost everywhere.
Yeah, actually, oh, there I look at that. That's yesterday's. But that's
Yes.
okay.
So you can
That's talking about us now.
yeah, exactly. So you can find Mary Jane at maryjanemucklestone.com. Oddly enough,
Hmm.
you didn't have trouble getting that domain? Not
You'd
so
be
much.
surprised how many Mucklestones there are. Now you find them from Facebook. We never knew, but they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yep.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to
Yeah.
know. So, and then also, as I was saying, that you teach a class on Fair Isle and Steaking on
Yeah.
Craftsy, which right now all of the classes on Craftsy are on sale. I think they're celebrating their anniversary
Two
or something.
millionth, two
Two
millionth
millionth member.
person. Yeah,
Yeah. So they have
member.
2 million people signed
Yeah.
up.
So it's an incredible bargain right now. And just because it says it's the Fair Isle vest, it doesn't mean you have to make a vest. You're going to learn all the skills just by watching the video. I think the vest is fun to make, but don't just think, oh, I'm never going to make that vest and not take the class, because all the skills you learn from the vest is designed to utilize all the skills you need to make a Fair Isle garment.
Good. For people who are scared about cutting their knitting, I can tell them from experience. The first time is a little nerve-wracking, and then after that, you have no problem taking a scissors to your knitting.
No problem. You'll start cutting everything.
Yeah, I mean
You won't even, depending on the yarn, of course, you will not even need to reinforce it. You just take those scissors and cut.
So let me just go back real quick and see if I can if there were any questions in here. Oh, someone wanted to know if you're Swedish.
Partly Scandinavian, but I took Swedish in high school, so I can sing some songs and drinking songs and children's songs. I'll sing one now if you want.
Will you?
Hej tomtegubbe, slå I glassen och låt oss lustiga vara. So I could go on, but
well, is this the first interview you've done where you've sung in Swedish?
Yeah, I guess so. But occasionally I I perform the little frog song, the Smogrudina song, which involves jumping up and down and flapping your arms, flapping your arms and saying quack quack quack. I've done that to the surprise of some of my students before.
I'm sure it's memorable. You don't want to give us a little of it now?
No, that'll have to be saved for like real life. You can ask me in one of my classes, because I'd have to get on the floor and hop, and I'd have to move the camera.
All right. For me, alcohol would have to be involved. So
usually alcohol involves being on top of tables, but with me, and not the little frog song.
Yeah, funny. So if you're gonna, I highly recommend that you run to Craftsy now while they're running their classes on sale, and Mary Jane will take you step by step through Fair Isle and Fearless Steaking. So Fearless Steaking. So you will become an expert, and you will just be you'll be steaking everything. You'll be cutting your knitting with impunity.
There's 3 different ways to do it, so you'll want to try them all.
See, there you go. So yeah, and one of the people in the room has said that she's bought a Craftsy class, but she hasn't taken it yet. So what are you waiting for? Just get on with it already. So yeah, get on with it.
And I answer your questions on there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm traveling, so I can't answer them right away, but you ask questions and I answer them.
Well, see, it doesn't get better than that, right? You have direct access to the teachers, which is really nice. So there was another question from Scotty, and she wants to know if you have a recommendation for yarn weight when you're knitting when you're doing Scandinavian or Fair Isle knitting.
Well, it really depends what you want your fabric to be. Like for mittens or something, it depends what you want. I would more recommend something like a classic wool that's 100% in Norwegian, Scandinavian, Norwegian, or Swedish, or Finland has some great yarns, and of course Iceland. And then for Fair Isle work, there's two companies on Shetland that make beautiful yarns, Jameson and Smith. They're not related, but they both make beautiful yarns. But yeah, I think the weight is more what you wish to make and what the fabric that you desire.
Yeah, and I
Is that
think if people keep in mind that there's going to be strands behind it, so you could basically have a double thick fabric.
You do have a double thick fabric. So, traditional jumpers, Fair Isle jumpers are made with something called two-ply jumper weight. That's sort of a fingering weight yarn. And real Shetland wool will fuzz up and wash, and the colors will blend together, which makes it especially beautiful. Scandinavian yarn is a little rounder and shinier. It doesn't really get a bloom after you wash it, but and it's kind of springy. So I think that the traditional wools, well, I'm just that kind of person too. And then like if you go with Icelandic wool, it's so light that even though you're using a worsted weight or even a bulky weight for traditional lopa pesas, the Loki sweaters, that patterned yoke ones that you see, and I go to Iceland, everybody's got them on. And if you wear one, they'll speak to you in Icelandic, which is very fun. But those sweaters are incredibly light just because of the nature of the fiber. So you really have to make your own choices, you know?
Yeah, and if you're going to steek, you definitely want a sticky wool.
It makes it a lot easier. I had kind of a frightening experience once using superwash wool, which is used a lot in baby clothes. I mean, people have been steeking 100% superwash wool for babies for as long as it's been made, and so long as you nail it down with a sewing machine, steeking is fine. But for traditional wools, you often don't even need to reinforce the steeks at all because the stickiness of the fiber will just hold everything together.
Yeah, and I had been told that, and honestly, for me, even a sticky wool gets stitches. I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah.
I just have visions of my stuff unraveling, and especially if you're giving it to somebody who might not
Oh,
take
yeah.
as exquisite
Yeah.
care of something that you would, since you know
No,
exactly
I
how much time
definitely
went into it.
recommend steeking. But once you've steeked a million times and you've got some old swatches, like I have a few swatches lying around, I wouldn't hesitate to just chop into those. But that's because I have so many.
Yeah, you have swatches to spare. So,
I
and
do.
and practicing steeking is probably the first time you do it. You might want to practice on a swatch and not on a sweater that you just spent 6 months knitting.
Exactly.
Just a thought.
Again, the cowl is perfect. Make a cowl and then steek it and then put a little button band on it. You've got a really super cute cowl with buttons.
So there you go. Without the fear, not without
Yeah.
quite so much fear. So
Mhm.
yeah. So, and of course, you can find Mary Jane. Like, you'd be surprised that she has a designer shop on Ravelry, and it has quite a few patterns that are downloadable as well,
Yeah.
and some free patterns as well.
Yeah.
So when you need some color work, or you want a small project, you want to get started on stranded knitting, and you don't know where to start, Mary Jane's downloads are a great place to go to get some projects. And I have to say, there's just the colors. Just I'm like a cat with a shiny object when it comes to color work. I can't stop looking no matter where it goes. And my eyes go to like 50 things on this page and say, oh, that one. No, that one. So yeah, so you all get a chance to, so yeah, and the people are saying they just love the ferrule on the socks. And Kathy asked a question. She wants to know what's the best method not to carry, like, to pucker your floats, not to carry the yarn too tight. And I think that's the thing that most people who are new to stranded knitting is, you get almost done and then you find out that one of your first rows is all puckered and there's
Okay,
ripping
so
back involved.
the main advice I can give you is to stretch out your just knit stitches along your right hand needle. So spread them out. Don't let them bunch up over there on your right hand needle. Your just knit stitches, smooth them out. There's a trick sometimes. I don't do this, but other people swear by it. If you're going to do a small diameter piece like socks, turn them inside out to do the color work. You'll still be looking at the front. It's kind of hard to describe in words, but you'll still be looking at the front of the piece so that you can do your stitch pattern really easily. But the stranding will be on the outside, so therefore it'll be it won't be loose. It won't be too tight. But I will say I never, ever do that. I just take care, and I've trained myself to stretch out the knitting on my right-hand needle. And therefore, your next stitch the float will be long enough. The float is the unused yarn that goes across the back.
Yeah, and also if you're new to color work, if you're new to doing stranded knitting, you may want to run a lifeline every 5 or 10 rows, just in
Yeah,
case that you find out, because ripping back when it's something other than just straight knitting is can be a little challenging. So
Yeah.
if I'm doing something complicated, I'll run a lifeline. I'll grab some dental floss and a tapestry needle, and I'll run a lifeline just because you never know. I'm just
But also pay attention to the work you're doing. Like, don't just look at the chart. Look at your own work, because your work will tell you where you are. And really look at your chart and understand. I'm making. Well, in ferrule is a good beginning because they're so symmetrical. So I can't do it. I have a phone in my the X's are going to go in and the O's are going to go out. So there's order to what you're doing. I wouldn't start knitting a reindeer because they're asymmetrical, and even the easiest looking reindeer is kind of hard to do. It's not easy to memorize reindeer's antlers. That's why people will often knit the same mittens over and over again, because by the second time you knit that crazy reindeer mitten, it'll be in your head. Whereas the first time you're like screaming, and then the second one you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then, third, pizza cake.
yeah, and it's a lot more fun if you're not having to count every stitch against the chart, just to
Right.
and figure out where you are as well.
Yeah.
So, and so Selena she said your designs are beautiful, and she loves the modernity, which it's wonderful. And she wants to know if you weave in your ends as you go, or if you wait till the end and do them all at once.
Yeah, well, I'm a lazy knitter, so I wait till the end, and it's sort of a tedious project. I leave it to the end and pretend it's a completely different thing. I'll tug them up and snug them up. And I also find that, people who are really worried that the beginning and end will have a jog, so there's the jogless join. I never do that in color work. Maybe for stripes it's useful, but when you weave in those ends at the end, you can even out that tiny little jog that occurs. It's fun. It can be soothing, or it can, be really long, and by the end, you don't know really your name anymore.
But it's a good project to do in the car if you're a passenger, or if you're sitting in front of the TV, because you don't have to look at a pattern while you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. Like watch some show that doesn't have subtitles, and you'll be good.
Exactly, and not an action movie, because then you need a talking movie. You need a talkie movie. So it's all in the dialogue. Those are those kind of projects where you sit down and just get it done. So, and especially when you're that close to finish with a sweater that you've invested that much time
Right.
and
Okay.
love
But
into.
let me interject something. When I went to Gudrun's house one day, her dad brought down this big old black garbage bag and dumped it out, and it was all the kids' sweaters they'd worn growing up. So the first thing I did was turn them inside out to see what the finishing was, and many of them had no finishing at all. They just left the ends loose, like hanging there. So that, those were old traditional garments, and they never wove in the ends.
All right, so you now have permission from Mary Jane Mucklestone herself to leave your ends dangling in the seams.
Or
So
tie knots. They
y-
tied little knots.
or tie knots.
Mhm.
There you go. And then
Mhm.
don't worry about it. You can, and if anybody gives you a hard time, tell them Mary Jane told you it was all right because that was traditional. So there
And
you
I have
go.
proof. I have photographic evidence.
So Jonquil wanted to know if the patterns are knitted differently for lefties um, as for right-handed people.
No, because it's interchangeable. It's the same. I'm a right-handed person, but I knit with my left hand. So
Yeah.
you just do it the same.
So there you have it.
I will say I have one stubborn friend who insists on doing everything backwards, and go for it if you want to, but there isn't really a need.
There you go. So, well, thank you so much, Mary Jane, for coming to visit us again, especially since this was our
I know
second
we're like best friends now.
our second shot at
Noonday friends.
getting it done. So,
Yeah.
so I am going to stop the recording now, and then we're going to give away some books. So, people in the
Okay, and
room.
wait. Let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
Is it too late?
No.
There's a blog tour too. So if you don't win today, go to my blog and you've got a chance to leave a comment. And then the six or seven of the designers from the book are also giving away books on their blogs.
Oh, so you have many chances
Many
to
chances to
win.
win.
Many
Who doesn't want
chances
a
to
free
win.
book?
Yeah, who doesn't want a free book? So, for those who will be joining us to watch this later, also don't forget October is the big giveaway on our Facebook page celebrating 2 million YouTube views of my
Wow.
how-to videos. And we have a huge stack of books and lots of yarn that we're giving away every single day in October. So not only today, on Mary Jane's blog and on the other designers' blogs, and then on our Facebook page in October. So we love free stuff. So thanks again, Mary Jane. I know you have like a crazy schedule. I appreciate you being here with us today. And and the question was, where was the blog? Go to maryjanemucklestone.com and you'll find it. You'll find everything you need to keep up with Mary Jane. So thanks again, Mary Jane, and I hope we'll see you again really soon because I'm sure you've got 6 or 8 books coming out in December or something. So
Yeah, in the next year.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Beth, for inviting me. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
my pleasure.
And
Everybody,
thanks for joining, everybody.
yeah, and don't go away, you guys. I'm giving away books, so hang in there. So
Okay.
thanks. Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye, Beth.
Bye.